big rigs are lonely machines. For drivers, long stretches of highway can mean hours alone with only the hum of the engine and the endless ribbon of asphalt for company. But loneliness is one thing. Terrifying things are another. On June 2014, trucker Mark Reynolds felt the crushing boredom that comes from too many miles on the road. And what was supposed to be a routine trip took a sharp turn into the nightmarish. It was just after 5 p.m. when Mark spotted a trio of children standing by the side of Highway 29 near the town of Brownsville, Oregon. The kids' strange appearance and their haunting request were playing havoc with his thoughts. Her eyes, those unnerving black orbs, stared directly at Mark, seeming to pierce through him. Relief washed over him, realizing he had escaped the unsettling encounter on the highway. "Be right with you," she said without a hint of a smile. Mark watched her go, his unease growing. He glanced around the diner, taking in the worn tables and chairs, the chipped counter stools. Or would you have left the kids by the side of the road? Let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe for more creepy stories. See you next time. It felt like time had stood still here, like the diner had existed in a perpetual state of the past. As Donna returned with his coffee, Mark took a sip, the hot liquid doing little to warm him up. He knew he couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over him. Excuse me," he began, trying to steady his voice. Can you tell me how far out of town am I?" And Donna stopped, her back to him. She didn't respond right away. "How far out of town am I?" and Mark repeated, his voice tight with anticipation. "You're about 7 miles north of Brownsville," she finally replied, her voice devoid of inflection. He decided to stop, hoping to find comfort in the warmth of the diner and the company of other humans. He had been hoping for more information, some indication that he was safe. Instead, he received a simple answer that did little to ease his fears. He thanked her and took another sip of his now cold coffee. He needed to get back on the road, but he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched. The bell above the diner door jingled, signaling a new arrival. Mark turned to see a man enter. He had an air of authority about him. The newcomer approached Donna, talking in hushed tones. Mark strained to listen, his curiosity piqued. The man leaned closer to Donna, his words barely audible. "Anything?" he whispered. Donna shook her head slowly, her gaze fixed on Mark. The man straightened, his eyes locking onto Mark. A chill ran down Mark's spine. He felt as though he were trapped in a nightmare, the walls of the diner closing in on him. The man walked towards Mark, each step echoing in the near silence of the diner. As he drew closer, Mark could see the badge on his chest, the glint of the metal under the harsh fluorescent light. "Mr. Mark Reynolds," the officer said, his voice firm. Mark swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. "Yes," he managed to say. He knew there was no escaping the situation now. The officer extended his hand. "I need to ask you some questions," he said. As he entered the diner, its warm glow enveloping him, he noticed a waitress staring at him intently. There was a knowing look in her eyes that sent chills down his spine. Mark slid into a booth, the vinyl seat cool against his skin. As he sat there, the events on the highway replayed in his mind. He couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched. The waitress approached, her name tag reading Donna. "How can I help you, hon?" she asked, her voice surprisingly flat and emotionless. Mark took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. I just need a coffee," he stammered, aware that his voice sounded shaky. She opened her mouth to speak, but Mark slammed the door shut, cutting off whatever she had to say. His heart pounded against his ribs as he tried to process what he should do. The girl knocked again, her small fists tapping against the metal with a hollow sound that echoed in the silence. But Mark didn't budge. He kept the door locked, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. He needed to get away from this situation before it was too late. Mark floored the accelerator. The engine roared to life as Mark shot forward, leaving the children behind. He risked a glance in his rearview mirror and saw their figures growing smaller, their forms swallowed by the thickening shadows cast by the trees. The image of the girl's lifeless eyes burned into his mind. And as the seconds ticked by, his relief turned to horror. With each mile he put between them, Mark's conviction that he had made the right choice grew stronger. But the nagging fear that he might have endangered himself and his dog lingered at the back of his mind. He drove on, haunted by the memory of those hollow eyes staring back at him from the rain-streaked glass of his rearview mirror. It was as if some primal part of him was urging him to run, to put the pedal to the metal and never look back. But the image of those 3 children standing alone in the rain tugged at his heartstrings. Mark felt conflicted, unsure of what to do next. The weight of his decision seemed to press down on him, making it hard to breathe. But he had to act fast. The rain was getting heavier, and the children looked colder by the second. Mark weighed his options quickly. He couldn't just leave them there. But he also couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that had been gripping him since he first laid eyes on them. She beckoned to Mark. Then the 2 smaller kids stepped forward, revealing matching smiles. Their skin was deathly pale. And when Mark rolled down his window, he noticed something that sent shivers down his spine. Their eyes were entirely black, devoid of white or pupils. It was like looking into 2 bottomless pits. Startled by what he saw, Mark quickly rolled back up his window. But the kids were persistent. They knocked on his door, and the tallest one called out, "Hello, mister. We need a ride home. Please." Their voices sounded oddly distorted and inhuman. And although Mark wanted to help, his gut screamed at him to drive away. He hesitated, torn between his instincts and his desire to do the right thing. It wasn't unusual to see kids walking along this stretch of road, so Mark didn't think much of it. Plus, they were all wearing 70s-style clothes, which was kind of cute. But then he realized they weren't waving down cars or thumbing rides. The sound seemed to echo Mark's own fear. He glanced at the kids, their faces now inches from his window. The driver's heart raced as he struggled to make a decision. His dog's reaction was making him question everything he had ever learned about helping people. In that moment, Mark knew he was facing an agonizing choice, one that would test the limits of his bravery and determination. What would he do? Help the mysterious kids or trust his instincts and drive away? The kids were just standing there in the rain. As Mark got closer, he could see that their clothes were outdated, worn denim jackets and faded polka-dot dresses. The oldest kid looked about 12 and was soaked to the bone. Mark pulled over. He couldn't bear the thought of those kids getting even wetter. He had to do something. As he slowed, the tallest child broke into a smile, baring teeth that were just a little bit too sharp. Suddenly, Mark's dog in the passenger seat let out a loud howl, a long, drawn-out sound that was full of terror. Mark was a man who prided himself on his kindness. But in that moment, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over him. As if sensing his turmoil, the tallest girl stepped closer to the truck. The rain had let up and the sky was clearing when Mark finally reached a diner. Donna nodded, her gaze unwavering as she turned to leave. Mark felt a chill run down his spine. To be continued. Would you have done the same thing as Mark?